Greetings comic lovers and welcome back to Casually Comics, the channel where we chat all things comics, from reviews of comics new and old to history to anecdotes, really wherever our whims take us. 3 Jokers, we've come to the end. That felt fast, to me at least. Especially after all the delays, it was kind of like, blink and we're done. All I can say is, that was interesting. That was definitely a thing that I read. We're gonna do the postmortem at the end, so stay tuned for that. There's a lot to talk about, so let's hop to it. But before we get started, I'm Sasha, and if you're enjoying this content, you know what to do. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Join us on this comic book journey. We've been covering the 3 Jokers, as well as the reasons behind why it was so delayed and the canonical history that gave rise to it. So if you missed all of that, I have cards and links, because we're about to clip notes the last 2 issues. 3 Jokers in a nutshell, go! There are 3 Jokers committing crimes in Gotham. That has drawn together 3 of Gotham's heroes who've been most affected by the Joker, and they are Batman, Barbara Gordon, Batgirl, and Jason Todd, Red Hood. As the 3 investigate what the 3 Jokers are planning, tensions rise, with Jason killing one of the Jokers, another Joker kidnapping Joe Chill, Jason being beaten with a crowbar again, Jason and Barbara sharing a kiss, cause reasons. We last left off with the comedian Joker, the one closely associated with the Killing Joke, asking Joe Chill why he really killed Thomas and Martha Wayne. Okay, strap in. Story and tangents incoming. Our cover is one of the 3 Jokers. All of these covers and their variants have been solid. Well drawn and eerie. The Joker is staring into my soul. Stop it, Mr. J. We open on panels with numbers and labels on our 3 core Jokers: the criminal, the clown, and the comedian. Did Bruce have to use such a gruesome photo for the clown? He has to have had others. Based on this theory, they would have been operating for years. We pan out to show more photos of Jokerized victims and more labels, but only our trio are in color, for only they are truly the Joker. Nice use of visual cueing. Noted and appreciated. The actor image is particularly gruesome. Batman, Barbara, and Jason have reconvened. Together they discuss how the Jokers are trying to build a better Joker. What does that even mean? Asking the real questions, Barbara. And incidentally, it's seemingly also the meta question that this book is attempting to answer, or at least tossing its hat into the ring to discuss. Batman believes that the current definition that they have behind a better Joker is one with an identity behind the persona. Someone behind the grin, behind the laughter, as it were. There are 2 Jokers left, Bruce, not 3. And when I get them, there'll be none. Since you're too weak to do it. Enough! Batman proceeds to scream at Jason about doesn't he think that he wanted to kill him, and Jason pulls a "but ya didn't, did ya?" Depending upon how you read these 2 characters or your history with them or how you feel they should be portrayed, this moment could either seem like, yes, finally, what we've been waiting for, you tell him, Jason, or it could feel wildly out of character and Jason may be acting like a petulant child. Mileage will vary. It's a conversation that's been played with again and again between these 2 characters, and it's not at its best here because there's not really enough time to focus on it, and we've seen this conversation many times before. The only new element added is Jason saying that Bruce really doesn't want him killing because it risks exposing Bruce's identity. You've got your perspective on it, Jason, and I understand, but Bruce was always only trying to help us. Exchanges like this one give the reader room to examine or re-examine their views on the characters and the relationships between them, should they so choose. If you're a reader who's firm in their view on characterization and correct or preferred characterizations for these characters, this may feel meandery or even out of character and hence frustrating. And unlike some of the other exchanges that we've seen before in other issues, this one doesn't exactly move the plot forward. In fact, to get back to the plot, Batman has to pull a whole, okay, we said we'd work together, now let's actually do that. The theory of the 3 Jokers begins to coalesce, how only these 3 have survived the process. He feels that the criminal reminds him of his earliest encounters with the Joker, so on a metatextual level, the Golden Age. The Clown Joker, campiness and theatrics, the Silver Age. Even though, if this were Jason's Joker, that happened in the Bronze Age, but the era seems to be a bit less strict. It's more the feelings that these Jokers evoke. But it's still fun to examine where they each most closely align. Finally, we have the comedian, the one Batman views as the darkest and most sadistic, with a special focus on what some refer to as the Dark Age. There was a period in time when the Joker wasn't used during the Silver Age, and so after that, when he reappeared at the start of the Bronze Age, his first issue opened with him killing somebody, or at least the person that he had killed. It was very much a he's back and he's dangerous, it's dark now, the Silver Age is dead, like this Joker victim. Batman feels that one of these 3 Jokers is the original, and that all of this is maybe a joke or maybe it isn't. He then apologizes for failing Jason, offers to help him become someone other than Red Hood, but Jason refuses. I don't need help. I'm good. He then accuses Bruce of knowing who the Joker really is. Bruce denies it, and Barbara is horrified by the very concept. All of this is interrupted by an alarm at Blackgate, alerting them to something that us, the reader, already know. Joe Chill's been kidnapped. In the cell, Batman finds letters all addressed to Bruce Wayne, except for one addressed to Batman. It turns out that Chill has been writing letters to Bruce, apology letters, but they're not fully finished and he's never sent them. We then have a moment between Jason and Barbara. No, they're not talking about the kiss. We're going back to the fact that Jason killed the Joker. And she's still upset about it. And she's so committed to not letting him do it again that if he does, she doesn't care if she has to unmask. It's not happening again. How much these moments affect you will definitely depend on whether or not you have any qualms about Jason killing the Joker. Because if you don't, these sequences may not play as well. There was a location on the letter addressed to Batman, so all three of them head there. And we get some of that narrationless and dialogueless storyboard style panels driving the plot forward with that nice, eerie, atmospheric vibe. One night only, the new Joker. Dividing to conquer and cover as much ground as possible, they enter the theater 3 separate ways. Batman head on, Jason around the back, and Barbara from above. Please take a seat, ladies and gentlemen. The show is about to begin. Batman emerging into a room with a projector. Someone watch Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker. I approve, so long as we didn't import Tim to be the new, better Joker. On the screen, Chill begins to explain the real reason why he killed Thomas and Martha Wayne. The real reason. Again. While above the screen, a bound and gagged Chill is held at gunpoint by the criminal Joker. And yes, he's chosen him as the next potential Joker. He's chosen him over Jason or Babs, the cripple and the child as he calls them. As un-PC as the use of that terminology already is, it would be better applied in this story if Barbara was Oracle. As it stands, it's just like, yeah, he's a jerk, jerkity jerk, 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 jerk. I thought about them. But as you know, the boy lacks sophistication and the girl has too much heart. So I picked the killer. As Batman listens, Chill begins to reveal the truth.
I knew who they were. I hated them for what they had. They had everything.
So not the conspiracy given truth angle, the whole he was hired because secret societies and important people needed the Waynes out of the way. That's another backstory that people have huge mileage variations on. The idea of random crime versus grand conspiracy. This explanation is more the former, with a dash of bitterness thrown in. I want you to know why I'm making a new Joker Batman. Because I want to mean more to you. Right now I am nothing but unidentified chaos. I need to be more. I need to be everything to you. He can be the Joker who matters.
I found out later who the Waynes really were. They were people trying to help Gotham with all they had. They were good people. And I took them from their son.
The fight rages on, Batman versus the criminal, and Jason and Barbara versus the comedian. Batman manages to save Chill from his acid bath. And the two have a moment that's well scripted in that it could be implying that Chill knows Bruce is Batman, which depending upon certain canons he does, because Bruce tells him, and that includes that one when he was sitting in that chair, I'm never getting out of this chair. Or you could read it as Chill repenting to the avatar of justice in Gotham. Both are interesting and both work. Batman saves Chill from the collapsing building, much to the criminal Joker's pained amusement, only for that Joker to be shot and killed by the comedian Joker, who then surrenders. And then there was one. So now it's time for Babs and Jason to talk about that kiss, because why not? What about a chance with us? Jason, I think we're interpreting what happened with us very differently. I'm sorry. We then get the reveal that I predicted in issue 1. Gordon knows that his daughter is Batgirl, which is not shocking at all. They've flirted with that and him actually knowing since the 70s. And really, if he's a detective worth any salt at all, then yeah, you should know. It's not hard. People just aren't trying. How they do it is silly though. He kind of comes up and is talking to her about how he's okay with her association with Batman and, you know, the vigilantism, but not Jason. No, Jason's a bad boy. And she replies with, I can do what I want, Dad, essentially. I'm paraphrasing, but it's very much, Daddy, I love him, except I don't. Yeah, how dare he care? The man who in this story we established drove you to and from physio and still stands behind you despite all the horrible things that this life has done to you. Yeah, who does he think he is? B-U-T-T out, Dad. So now we have one last conversation between the remaining Joker and Batman. See? After all of that drama, don't you feel better? Bruce.
What do you want?
Oh, this isn't a joke, Batman. There is no final twist. He goes on to say that he is chaos, that the other Joker was wrong. It's more meaningful if the Joker is nobody. I am nothing to you and everything. It isn't the Joker that's broken. it was the Batman. He goes on to say that all of this was to give Batman closure, true closure with Joe Chill, thereby healing him and allowing the Joker to be the only cause of his pain. Time for our epilogue. Zzz. Bruce goes to forgive Chill as himself before he dies, and then he goes off to Alaska, as he also acknowledges that even if all the Jokers were dead, it wouldn't ultimately matter because it could never undo what's already been done to Jason and to Barbara. He doesn't really talk about himself though. He's been pretty emotionally absent for most of this story. Oh, and Jason writes Barbara a love confession. We are not done with this plot. It will not die. It will live on forever. He tapes the note to her door. The gist of it is, I care about you. I think that something could happen between us, and I will change for you. There's a lot to read into that. We will do that at the end. But for now, the note falls off the door and it's swept up by the janitor, and so she never sees it. Also in the note, he said that we never have to talk about this, and if you never want to mention it, I understand. The perfect escape clause. I think we could be great together. I really do. I'll give up being Red Hood for us. I can be something else. Or I can just be Jason. I can be better. And I will devote my life to making you proud, happy, loved. Then, one last twist. Bruce does know who the Joker is, because we're about to canonize the Killing Joke more and make this story kind of a literal as well as spiritual sequel to that story. He knew who the Joker was the first week after they met. Why? Because he really was that man in The Killing Joke, only now we're tweaking that story slightly and he was abusive to Jeannie, his wife, and that story that he's told about how she died is no wonder one of life's funny random ironies. No, it was a secret plan by her to escape the relationship, and she got some cops to help her concoct this story so that she could escape. Bruce isn't revealing the Joker's name because then the press would somehow find her and her son and they'd never be left alone. Instead, he'll just go stare at them and gaze sexily like he's in a Mark's Winter Coat ad.
But the Joker's name isn't what's important. It never has been.
And scene. All right, the postmortem. Get a snack, get a drink. We may be here a while. I don't know. I'll know after I edit it. Let's start off firstly with the claims that the book made that you could take it or leave it when it came to whether it was canon or not. You know what? They pulled that off. We started with 3 Jokers, ended with 1. So you can now just pretend there was always just one if you hate the premise of multiple Jokers. The Joker that we're left with knows Bruce's identity, which allows him to slot into being the Joker in the Joker War should you want this to have bearing on canon. It even goes along with his "now I can really hurt you" speech in the van. J-Babs, Red Bat, whatever it is we're calling shipping Barbara and Jason. You can pretend this didn't happen too, because the whole "we never need to talk about this again." If you already felt that the Killing Joke was on nebulous canonical ground, you can keep it there, or you can add this as a kind of sequel. The one place it doesn't really slot in noticeably is Batgirl, because there was a whole sequence in issue 50 where it was instrumental that her dad didn't know who she was. Or if he did, he's just playing it very coy. There's been a bunch that hasn't lined up in that book with all the rest of the other books though, for a variety of reasons. No, not just the author not being invited to the Batman Summit. This was a different writer, by the way. All of this is a discussion for another day. Still, if we're ignoring 3 Jokers at this point, it ends up working out. So yeah, it really can be an isolated event, at least the time of this recording. You don't know, things change in the future and things are connected or added. You know, I cannot vouch what happened after the time of this recording. Now, is that ultimately a good thing? Your mileage will vary. The fact that there was such a gap in between when this book was supposed to come out when it actually did may have worked in its favor. I can see there having been some major "that's it" after the huge fanfare that there was about the reveal of there being 3 Jokers at the end of the New 52. Some are still having a "huh, that's it? That was a thing I read" kind of reaction to this whole event anyway. The comic where this was revealed was very "le gasp, 3 Jokers, it could change all of the things." And ultimately in this story, it didn't matter all that much that there were 3 Jokers. The story was more of a character piece and near metatextual examination of the Joker's role in the Batman mythos, and in relation to Batman and certain members of his supporting cast. Which personally I found very interesting, but I can see coming away from it and being like, yeah. Questions were opened up about the characters and how they're coping and the like, but they weren't fully examined, and none were healed or really changed, since they can't be because this is in the kind of a connected if you want sort of realm, which did ultimately limit the scope of some of what could be done, which in turn may have made this a less grand, impactful in the overall scheme of things story than it could have been if you're someone who likes your stories to have a big ripple effect on canon. I fell into the "we don't need to literally have 3 Jokers" category when I heard of this announcement when I first read the whole "there's 3." I suspended my disbelief surrounding that hard and went for the multiple choice "he doesn't even know, he's not stable, so it's gonna shift" explanation, which accommodates for all the things, the changes in appearance, the change in his presentation based on the different eras that we're in. So the fact that we're back to only one doesn't bother me. But if you were expecting some big dramatic reveal surrounding these three, like it was really gonna matter which was which and who did what, then I can see leaving this feeling a little bit disappointed. It also appears to be slightly shady towards those who enjoy the concept of the Joker being an actual fixed person within Batman's life or mythos. When it comes to the Joker, he's been around so long that there are tons of opinions out there as to what would/does/could make him a truly meaningful foe for the Dark Knight. And there tend to be some opposing ideas, namely, he's a person Batman knows versus he's nobody. For a more modern at the time of this recording analogy, the Ray's parents debacle. The thing is, both of these tropes can provide interesting stories, and profound ones with a lot of pathos, and be scary in their own right. There's a tragedy to the Joker being someone Batman knows, and the horror of being tormented by someone you have a personal connection to. It can make the crimes feel closer to home for the characters. The Stranger is a different animal. There you have to confront the existential dread of meaninglessness. Why is this person doing this? Because they can. Why do they care about you? Because they do. There's a lack of control in that scenario that's also intriguing to explore. So in my books, either can be pulled off well. You just gotta believe. But this story goes out of its way to shoot the Joker who wanted to create an identifiable Joker in the head and say that he was wrong, and end the story on a "the Joker's name doesn't matter" point. I don't know, I just got the vibe that this was something personal. Like a "stop telling me he needs to be a person," like Johns was up late on forums and people kept telling him that at some point in his life and he was like, no, it's better if he's not. It's better if he's a stranger. Again, it's totally just the vibe I got reading this. Okay, characterizations. Barbara sure got to bear the weight of everyone thinking she's perfect and over everything. Even if she wasn't, there's no room for that. Barbara's fine. Saint Barbara. The person who got the most time dedicated to them was definitely Jason. Batman barely reacted to a lot of what happened in this story. Very stoic, even to things you'd think he would react to. If you feel that Batman is emotionally constipated beyond all help, well then this may have felt very in line with what you were expecting. However, if you're more used to or feel that he's a bit more emotionally connected, developed, demonstrative, and that he very much cares for the people that he's working with, even if he's not always the best at showing it, then you may have felt the urge to shake him like he shook Jason. Don't you think I wanted to kill for you? Did you put your name in the goblet, Harry? Speaking of Jason and Babs. I got a lot of comments on the video I did for issue 2 that essentially boiled down to, I don't hate Jason and Barbara as a concept, but Barbara needs to stop being paired with every single member of the Bat family. She's not a bicycle, not everybody needs a ride. I can see rejecting this pairing because you're tired of what seems to be an overarching trend of Barbara as a love interest for Bat boys, or because you just can't reconcile the timescale. On a case-per-case basis, Jason and Babs has some potential, and I can see wanting to explore it. However, it is true that this relationship would not exist in a vacuum, and so canonically I can see how it would be awkward given her history with Dick. And would that awkwardness add anything to the overall narrative for any of their characters? That's a question. You have to decide that for yourself. Also in this tale, because the ending is working so hard to return things to a what three Jokers kind of status quo, let's talk about that note. This plotline ends up feeling a little bit pointless. It's one of those things where the story could have benefited from a hard Elseworlds label, because then it could have just gone for it and been like, we want to explore this, and so here you go. That note that he leaves, on the one hand, it's kind of nice. Jason opening up to someone and being like, I'm a bit of a mess, but I don't want to be. I need some help, and I like you, and I'd like to get to know you. But the whole, I'm gonna change for you, who do you want me to be? Unhealthy. And again, the story putting all kinds of pressure on Barbara to just be this rock for everybody around. She just wants to break treadmills in peace. For a story called The Three Jokers, it might have been cool to see more interaction between said three Jokers, particularly to get more distinction between the clown and the comedian. Also personally, this is just a me thing entirely, I don't think that Batman/Bruce is still all that hung up on Joe Chill to the extent that it's demonstrated here. Like, yes, his parents are dead. Yes, he's not over it, but also he's kind of filled that void with Batman and helping Gotham and all of the people that he's adopted. You know, all of those allies and children and family members for someone who works alone. Now onto this book's attempt to connect itself to The Killing Joke as a pseudo-sequel sort of kind of thing. It is with great elation that I can say that my postulations on the review of issue 2, where I talked about the fantasy sequence where the comedian Joker was eating with his family, having to do with the plot, it mattered. Huzzah! I meant mentioned how I felt the Joker's family would view him with fear. Personally, this wasn't my favorite addition to the character. It, in my opinion, weakens one of the strengths of the Killing Joke when it came to characterizing the Joker. The whole "it only takes one bad day," which was underlined by the fact that he wasn't a terrible person, he was a struggling person. Which for me was a key part in driving home the idea that the Joker could be anyone. Still, this does add a new angle and perspective, and it doesn't come from nowhere, so I can see it adding an intriguing layer for some readers. That snippet of the argument, I can see why you would take it and twist it for abuse, but it could also have just been an argument. Sometimes a cigar is just a cigar, as they say. Them really existing doesn't add a whole lot. I don't know, to me it just came across as a look gasp, shock moment for the sake of it. Or a look, I did a thing, I added something kind of moment. I'm still processing the story, which is part of why I'm so late. That and I'm always late. I get to things when I get to them. I reread them all. Like, I wanted to experience the story as a whole, as well as having read it as it came out. As a whole, I think strong start, a middle that introduced some concepts that there was no way it was going to be able to handle, and softball finish. But I enjoyed it. Because I enjoyed that it made me think about the characters and their relationships to each other, and these elements of their histories with the Joker. I did not agree with some of the characterizations or how characters reacted to certain situations and stimuli, but this story did make me go back and re-examine some of the issues that helped form my opinions on the characters in question. So I got to go back and look at some of the core issues that make me think about the characters the way that I do, and that was fun. It also elicited an emotional response from me, so that means it at least did something right, or had the potential to. The art was gorgeous, and I am impressed that it managed to make such a neat avoidance of canonical confusion, even if it may have been to the story's ultimate detriment. So I may have more to say on this in the future, I have no idea. I don't know, we'll see what happens. But now I want to know what you think. How was your reading experience? Did you like it? Did you feel it was a waste of time? It didn't matter? Did it make you mad? J-Babs for life? Just share all your thoughts down below. While you're down there, please do all the YouTube things. Like, share, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell notifications so that you never miss a vid. Thanks so much for taking some time out of your day to spend discussing comics with me. I always appreciate it, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.